Hey guys, how's it going? This here's Tracilyn, also known as VCat. Let me rushing through another neighborhood shortly after living on Cumberland Street over there where I was showing you by the bingo hall with all the roaches. Right along the circuit that we used to cruise so many times, and now hopefully I have time to walk through town and give you some stories about things about how I used to hang in town with our muscle cars, and it was a good way to connect with other people. This neighborhood, remember I was talking about on Lafayette Street how we had a big family neighborhood and we were always safe within there. It was pretty big, tight-knit community. I usually hung around the girls. Usually they were a little bit tougher than me. They kind of looked out for me. This was a little bit different. Then I went over here to Cumberland Street, where it was the first time that I actually started trying to fit in with guys my age. And in order for me to do that, or so I felt, I hope you don't feel this way, was if I got involved doing things that I didn't necessarily want to do. It wasn't necessarily drugs or anything. Remember, I was introduced to marijuana at a very young age, alcohol at a very young age, smoking at a very young age, my whole life. We had different values. We looked at life a little bit differently than many people. In most of the neighborhoods that I grew up to that point, my mom was the mom of the neighborhoods. Everybody loved her. She accepted everybody warmly, and we were usually the life and the entertainment of the party. This neighborhood was a little bit different, Lebanon Village, at that time. Please understand, it was at that time. It was in the 80s, mid-80s to upper 80s, that I grew up here. I don't remember the details of a lot of things. As I walk through this neighborhood, know this. This neighborhood here at that time, please understand, at that time, it was divided up amongst itself. So before we had a whole neighborhood, probably about a half mile or a mile long, that we could hang out in. As long as we didn't go up to certain areas of the city, we were in a safe zone. And here it was a little bit different. These are row homes, a lot of apartments in these row homes. And if you just crossed the street sometimes, you were on the wrong territory. So I'm gonna jump up here, figure out, this is my junior high school years, going into high school. 15 sticks in my head here a lot. I got to meet my best friend, who later on I found out lived in this exact same neighborhood, up a row home or two from where I was. I met him in Lafayette one day while he was playing basketball over at Lafayette. I think I just said that. Over in Lafayette, he was playing basketball. He had a bike. I had a bike. Somehow that day we started hanging out together. And we found out in the end that we both lived in the same community. In this neighborhood, there was a mixture of just about everything you can imagine. Older people, younger people hung out, and adults as well, people in their 20s, 30s, and the kids. It was my first introduction to actually having Spanish friends. I was usually also the younger of the bunch. I hung around older people because I felt safer. I could connect with them a little bit better. But with that comes exposure to a lot of other things, other lifestyles, other belief systems. And I just want to stay simple here by saying it's the first time that I had an encounter with a girl, an intimate time with a girl, not just kissing. And I did it out of pure pressure because everybody was telling me pretty much that this was the cool thing to do and it was a way to have fun. Struggling a lot. I stopped pretending because I stopped using my imagination so much because there was a lot of trauma that I experienced up to this point, a lot of abuse in school. I'm still wanting to fit in with everybody. And when you start hanging around older people, other pressures come in. There's a lot of partying going on here. Still drinking is pretty dominant in our household. These are the years, even though I started playing, and I haven't touched too much with you about music, But this is dominantly where music and playing my guitar specifically became my escape. Instead of walking around the neighborhood pretending that I had a car or what have you, I actually closed myself in a bedroom where I would sometimes, and I have said this and people find that hard to believe, but I would strum my guitar, sometimes just one chord, for 19 hours staring at the wall. I had no idea what I was trying to escape. I didn't know how to deal with life too much. But I did know that I was extremely depressed, and that started happening in Union Alley. I'm gonna speed things up here. I'm gonna walk a little bit faster, I should say. Over here to my left, at that time, I don't want to show anybody specifically, but down this neighborhood, at that time, it was known as Pig's Alley. Pig's Alley was a tough area of this neighborhood to walk through by yourself. I never walked through it by myself. I walked just the way I was going now, because tough people in that area, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, a lot of fighting, were things that I wanted to stay away from. This is the first apartment that I stayed in. We were on the second floor. It was the first time my sister, I was experiencing another separation where my sister was joining the military, the Navy. And because our family was so tight as children growing up, to know that she was leaving us possibly forever, I didn't know how to take that. I didn't know how to handle it, so I took it out on music. This is where my passion for music really increased. In order for me to be accepted in the neighborhood, there are times like right here, we lived also at this first floor apartment. There'd be times that I would come out here and sit on the front porch and just strum my guitar. And whenever I did that, I seemed to draw a lot of people to me. People that wanted to hear me play, but it was not usually the songs that I've written. They wanted me to play songs that were famous on the radio at that time. During this time, it was probably a lot of 80s glam band music that was popular. And let's just face it, I wanted to be popular. But not popular so that I could be popular. I just wanted to be accepted. And whenever I had my guitar with me, and you'll learn more about that as I take time to actually explain about the music. Right now I'm focusing on myself and my own struggles. I was skipping school a lot here because I was tired of being harassed, beat up every day, or maybe not beat up every day, but I was tired of trying to find a new escape route from school without being abused. I didn't know how to go about it. I didn't know who to talk to. It seemed that no matter when I would talk to people, remember, they would laugh at me. Things would excavate, and they would get worse for me by getting into fights that I didn't want to be involved in. So with that being said, I started secluding myself into the bedroom. Let me come by here. What ended up happening, I'm going to show you the one bedroom that I was telling you. I actually clocked myself. When I skipped school one day, I clocked myself to see how long would I play guitar, and it was 19 hours. It was the only time that I ever remember doing that. But I was just curious because I realized that I was spending so much time with music and my acoustic guitar right in this window, right here. People would actually, my friends would actually come to my window because they knew Tracilyn was a guitar player. That's all she wants to do. All she wants to do is play her guitar. So people, my friends would come and they would knock. Sometimes they would throw stones or something at it and then they would run. That was a sign, come on out and let's walk around the neighborhood together. Never alone, but together. And let's do whatever we did. At that time, I was hanging around people in their 20s. We were going roller skating a lot. I had a new best friend for the first time in my life. I had a friend, and let me tell you something about that friend without revealing too much about who he was. He was like an older brother that I longed for, in the sense that we had so many things in common together. We loved to ride bike, we loved to play basketball together. We both loved all the music that was popular on the radio at the time. We both loved to go roller skating. And I was trying so hard to like girls at that time. So he was very protective, and just much like the other people, if there were times that I had to get into fights, he wanted me to learn how to defend myself, how to protect myself. But remember, I'm not a violent person. I don't like fighting. So I buried myself in the music. I remember in these apartments, MTV was pretty big. On this end house that I'm walking around right now, first Spanish friend. I love him to death. I hope he's doing good. He was in his 20s. At that time, I'm not going to mention any names, at that time he was kind of dating the younger girls, the teenagers. I was trying to make sense of this. Why would an older guy be with the younger girls? Why are the younger girls so attracted to the older men? I knew why I was, but I'm trying to figure this out. Why am I not connecting and fitting in with everybody? Because in my head, as I'm trying to process all of this, I'm looking for a way that I could be a part of life around me without jeopardizing my morals of who I was. This is a neighborhood where I had to go through some drastic changes because I was still a pretty boy, had my long hair, felt very much like a girl in my heart. I wanted to share time with a specific guy, just any guy, really, somebody I could connect with. My friend filled that void. We never had any kind of intimate encounter, by the way. It was just a brother that I always longed for, that I could share time with. We used to come down to this house where my Spanish friend lived. They'd always have MTV on, be listening to different music, talking on the front porch. We just did a lot of crazy stuff that kids do. Not so much vandalizing at that time. I mean, a little bit here and there, but not so much. We just hung out and did things that kids do. But as I'm walking right here, notice, this is pretty much the only area that I hung in that I felt safe. Even walking from my apartment down to here, I was nervous. I was always looking over my back because I didn't know what was coming my way. If there was somebody that was just not going to like me because of my long hair, or because they heard, this is somebody that we can pick on and look cool in front of our friends because they don't like to fight. We can fight them, and in front of our friends we'll look tough. A lot of us had bikes, so we would go bike riding around the neighborhood. I had a lot of different encounters with teenage girls here. I told you this was the first time I ever got intimate with a girl. It's very uncomfortable for me. I remember the experience was horrible to me. Horrible. And other people thought it was funny because I would explain that to them, that it just was uncomfortable to me. But let me just say that the pressure of it all, the wind is blowing my hat around, the pressure of it all made me feel that I had to do these things because it's what guys did, So I would spend a lot of time in this house. I wrote a couple songs. One of them is Patty's song. It's the first song I ever wrote. It was one chord. I wasn't too talented at it at the time. I was more or less pretending to be a guitar player rather than actually being one. I don't know how to word this. I kind of had like a learning, I don't want to say disorder. It was challenging for me to learn anything in life, even music, because I was so stressed out over the years of things and trying to process everything that I've been through, trying to figure out myself and why I wasn't being accepted sociably. So I buried a lot of my time in that bedroom. Number 13, see that? Building number 13. That's where my musical talent started to shine through. And I would sit on the front porch, and that's how I made friends. My mom had a really good friend that would come over here, her drinking buddy, at both of these apartments. And they would always tell me when they would be gathering around listening to my mother's 45s, her vinyl albums, would often tell me, why don't you go get your guitar and bring it out and play us a few songs? And occasionally I would, but I never felt confident. I never felt confident that I was even good. And to be honest, reflecting back at those days, I really wasn't good. And I was trying to gain their acceptance, so I started playing a lot of the songs that they liked, or trying to learn those songs. And I was trying to sing like these other recording artists. And let me just say, I've learned the hard way That was the wrong way for me to go at that time. In order for me to fit in, no matter how I looked about it, I either had to do what everybody else was doing, or even when it came down to playing music, I had to sound and play like everybody else that was on television or on my radio. In this last apartment that I lived here in the village for quite some time, I was so depressed. And I was just approaching into 16. Eventually, what ended up happening is the bike went away. Cars came out. I thought having a car would make me cool. It would help me to fit in with everybody else. It's like my mom's boyfriend. You know, you have a muscle car. Your friends want to hang out with you. You want to have a good time. We're all drinking. So if you could get alcohol and you had a nice fast car, chances are you're going to have people in it and you're going to be having a good time. Or so I thought. But I was having a good time, but at the same token, I wasn't. I was suffering inside. A lot of people would try to lift my spirits up, like my friend. He'd try to lift my spirits up and say, why are you always down? You're so hard on yourself. This is the neighborhood where I was starting to get asked and questioned a lot. Why are you hard on yourself? Why are you being so hard on yourself? And I continued to get asked that for years, even into my 20s, into my 30s. Why are you always being so hard on yourself? What? So, with that being said, know that instead of pretending, walking around the neighborhood, that I had a different life, I was starting to escape my reality into my art, into learning the craft of musicianship, playing guitar. I got my first job when I was here. I was turning 16, this last apartment, so I could have a car. I wanted a car so bad. And the reason I wanted a car was because I wanted friends. I wanted to be liked, sociably accepted. I reflect back now, and I was kind of taking some wrong steps in life to connect with the world around me. In that apartment, in order for me to get a job and society to be accepted in a job, I had to cut my hair off. What do you think of that? I had to cut my hair. Vika had to cut her hair in order to get a job. I got my first job. I wasn't happy. The whole time I'm going to school, I'm going to work. I want to be at home playing my guitar. I was very drawn to that. It was the one thing in the whole world that I wanted to spend all my time doing. And the biggest reason that I wanted to is I felt at ease. I escaped my reality of not fitting in. I escaped my reality of my inner struggles, whatever they were. I was thinking that there has to be something better than living a life, being what everybody else is telling me to be. There has to be a better life than being beat up somebody's punching bag every day going to school. There has to be a better life than doing things just to fit in or to be cool, to be accepted. Did I say that? I'm probably repeating myself a lot because right now, I'm going to be honest. Can I be honest with you? I'm pretty down right now. I'm down because I wanted for years to share my life story with you. I wanted to write a book, and you're going to find out about that as we go on. I wanted to write a book about my life. I wanted to take the time to break things down, organize things a lot better, because I believe that there is a lot to learn in just studying my own life history. Maybe it's for me, but also I know that other people could benefit from this. Might be a little more understanding for us all in just understanding my own life struggles. Might be able to help you to accept yourself and align your mind with your heart and make the right choices for yourself rather than trying to be a people pleaser, which is pretty much what obviously I was because I wanted to be accepted. When I got that car, let me tell you something. The jobs that I got, they didn't provide so much financial income. And I was lost in a world of trying to go to school, going to work, keep my car working. Let me tell you, I couldn't afford the cars that I was having. I couldn't even afford to have the gas in it. That having a car was an expense that VCAT could not afford to take on. Not at that time. Not even at this time, maybe. And because I didn't know how else to get ahead or survive in a world that was pretty much, I felt like it was beating me up, I did things that I totally, later in life, regretted. Just because it's not in my character, it's not in my morals, it's not what my mother or my dad or anybody else taught. It was just a way for me to try to fit in and gain acceptance in our city and to have a friend. That's what I wanted more than anything, a friend. And I gotta tell you, this is where my best friend came about. And I'm very grateful. We had a lot of wonderful times. He had sisters, and they were into roller skating. Roller skating was a big thing for us during this time. So I think he had a car first. We would go skating with him. We would all load up in his car. And it was an inspiration for me because I saw he had a lot of friends. He was well liked. And I'm sure to this day he's still very well liked. And he had long hair, you know, and he's living his life and he's doing things. He was a mechanic. I always admired him because he would work on my car a lot. And let me just say that my talents aren't there. I'm a driver, but I do not work. I'm not a very good mechanic. I'm not a good carpenter. I don't do these things too well. You know, but music was my passion. And I knew it the second I turned on my television way back in the trailer. I wanted to look pretty and I wanted to sing. My mother introduced that to me. Our family was very musical. Though guitar was introduced to me at a very young age, let me just say that it didn't really impact me until my teen years. How much I loved it and how much I wanted to perfect it. I wanted to sound like other people and play like other people, but let's just face it, at this time, day and age, my mindset was very negative, extremely negative. And I'm still trying to process everything, and I'm using the guitar to escape my reality of everything that's going on. And it did pretty good, because I usually felt, it was very therapeutic. I felt good. I didn't want to get involved in any kind of trouble. Didn't want to fight with anybody. So I'm going to continue on out of here. It's kind of noisy. But I just wanted to walk you through a neighborhood and let you know that this is a neighborhood that was divided amongst itself. And there were certain groups of people that hung out together. It was kind of like gangs, but it wasn't gangs. But it was groups of individuals that would hang out together. And very seldom did anybody cross over from one group to the other. And usually we minded our own business. Occasionally things got out of control. I never really got into fights here. I might have gotten threatened once or twice, but because I had a friend that was pretty much liked and loved by everybody, you know, he kind of put out the signal that this is my little brother. At that time, this is my little brother, and please don't mess with him. And he protected me. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. You know who you are. Started hanging around girls. I gotta say, over here in this apartment too, with the pressure of not only sleeping with girls my age, I also started hanging out. Remember I said there was a lot of people that drank here at that time, okay? There was a lot of drugs. There wasn't too much violence other than that. It was just more of like a party neighborhood. And the thing is, a lot of the adults hung out with the children. And things start to happen when the children are around the adults all the time. I'm going to move on. I have some notes here. I'm going to go to a quiet place, maybe up in the mountains. I got a lot to think about myself. I'm a little under stress, so just to let you know. Originally, like I said, I wanted to take time, map this all out, walk people through my life. I wanted to write a book, but I'd rather do it this way. So I think a lot of people out there, they don't necessarily, people that wouldn't read books, they'd be more willing to listen or watch the YouTube videos. Thank goodness for YouTube. Thank goodness for the internet in many ways. So I want to be stuttering over myself a little bit until until we get into the later years, because I'm still trying to sense the energy of what was going on here. I was a loner, I was an outcast. Let me tell you, skipping school was tremendous for me here. I'm not recommending it, please don't do that. But I started to withdraw more and more. My depression was seeping into me. It was destroying me. It was eating at me inside, and the only way that I could escape that I felt, was in my guitar, playing music. I started writing songs in this neighborhood. Happy was one of them. In my diaper. If you look at my other YouTube page, Tracilyn Michael, you can see that there's a video of me in my diaper. And I'm singing Happy. That was written here. And I started connecting with people with similar passions. And let me tell you something, my life felt totally different. I had a friend that played guitar. And I had friends now that liked the same kind of music as me. It wasn't just with my parents. It wasn't just with my mom's boyfriends. I was connecting with people my own age group. And we weren't going out vandalizing. We were just pretty much hanging out, having a good time, riding our bikes. You want to talk about me and my friend, we rode our bikes everywhere before we got our cars. Life-changing moments happened when I did get my car. And I had to change my physical appearance in order to get a job and to fit in. I had the car. Did a lot of drinking and driving. Please don't do that. I don't do that anymore. I don't even really drink anymore, ever. Seldom ever do I drink. If it is, it's a glass of wine. But even that I don't do anymore. You'll find out as we go on that these are things that I wanted out of my life, my entire life. But I was stuck in negative thinking. I couldn't stop thinking negatively. Trying to process everything, figure everything out, and I wasn't doing too good of a job. I was more or less escaping my reality. Later on in life, you'll find out that I had a head-on collision with my reality. It's not a pleasant feeling. So as I'm going through with these videos with you and walking around, feeling the energy, reflecting back on times, it's very therapeutic for me. I'm having a clearer understanding myself, and there's something to learn in it. So with that being said, we used to sit on the front porch all the time. A lot of drinking going on. Did I say a lot of drinking? We drank a lot. Hanging around older guys now. Actually, my friend that I met on Lafayette Street that lived here, we were pretty close in age. He's the one who introduced me. Like I said, everybody loved him. He could connect with anybody. I'm sure to this day he still can. I was always the one struggling and connecting with people, but he introduced me to a whole new breed of my first Spanish friend, who I love to death. He had twins. His daughters were twins, and I just tell you what, that's when I knew I had a strong passion for children and entertaining them, because when I would go to their house, and while everybody was fooling around with girls and boys and kissing and who disappeared into whose bedroom, I was out with the kids playing and having a good time, doing little children things. So now I'm not necessarily pretending, I'm connecting with children. And I'll tell you what, I felt really good about that. And many of us would volunteer to watch those children because they were kind of like our little sisters. You know, I had little sisters. And it was neat because one of them was Spanish, and from what I remember, you know, the other two, they might have had some Spanish blood in them, but they were twins, and it was the first time I was introduced to twins. And the funny thing is, did you ever see Full House with the Olsen twins? If I'm not mistaken, that was at the same time. So what was going on television was kind of going on in my neighborhoods, is what I realized. So I wasn't going through these things alone, it was our whole generation. This here's Lehman Street, out by Lebanon Village. There's a mini mart down here called Turkey Hill. We spent many times walking in this alleyway. Very seldom did I ever go alone. If I did, I rode bike. The only way that I would feel safe leaving this neighborhood is not on foot, it was on bike. Up the road here a little bit, which is only like a block up on Lehman Street, was our bus stop. I remember taking that bus to high school. It's the first time that I was introduced to like MC Hammer, I think, was big during that time. I could be wrong. I can't touch this. But primarily, dominantly, this is where 80s music started overflowing through my soul. I'll never forget, we used to go around with Walkmans. on our side, and we'd have our headphones on, riding our bikes. I just thought that was the coolest thing. It just that alone, the way I used to ride bike listening to music. You ought to hear how I used to strap radios onto my handlebars and pretend that my bike was actually a car. So I guess I did pretend a little bit, but when we had to Walkman with our headphones on, can I just tell you that I would pretend that I was driving a car? And at that time, Wasp was really big. He loved Wasp. He introduced me to Wasp. A lot of fun times with him, just riding our bikes all over town. I never left this neighborhood on foot alone. It was always on my bicycle. And when I rode fast. And I usually rode down this street scared when I left that neighborhood. Insecure. What's going to happen to me out here? Very seldom did I ever stop anywhere. I love to ride. As I still do to this day, I love to ride bike. Not so much do I ride bike scared to ride through the neighborhoods, but back in that day I was scared. I stuck in the alleyways. Can I tell you something about this? In that day, I used to ride my bike across town. Sometimes we'd go down to Lafayette Street. Of course, there was a lot of fun times. I kept reminiscing on old times. Can I tell you that I stuck in the alleyways because I figured I wouldn't be noticed as much as if I went on Lehman Street or went down Cumberland Street. If I did have to go across those streets, I would cross it very fast. I usually kind of hid behind houses. I'd kind of look around, and I would go super fast when I knew I had the clearance. And the biggest reason is I didn't want to see any of these bullies that were messing with me in school. You know, did you ever have that happen? Did you ever get so scared that you were afraid to ride your bike through town? You know, well, I used to be like that. So I pretty much stayed in our apartment. My mom was very supportive. Why don't you go to your room and play your guitar? Go to your room and play your guitar. And I had an electric guitar. I would listen to it with my headphones on, so it wasn't too disturbing to everybody. But my acoustic guitar is what I always favored and what I loved, but it was noisy for everybody else. So I started playing my electric guitar. But can you imagine riding through town being that scared that you got to stay in the alleyways and you got to go unseen? That's how I was. The neighborhood was divided up amongst itself. You had to know, and I learned this on Lafayette Street, you just had to make connections with the right people, and then you had like a protection around you. People didn't mess with you just because you had a friend that was well loved by people of all walks of life in that neighborhood. That's what it was like for me. Thank goodness that he was in my life. Scared to death to ride my bike outside of the neighborhood. But I didn't want to be penned up there all the time, and I loved riding bike, so I stuck in the alleyways. And there was never a time that my heart wasn't beating fast, hoping that somebody wasn't hunting me down. Because most of the guys that were bullies, for some reason, that picked on me, they didn't have bicycles. Most of the time, they were walking around doing they're doing their own thing. Doing the whole thing. And let me just say that I do have forgiveness for all of this. And without it, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't have stories like this. I might not be able to relate to the people maybe in life that I'm called to reach out to and let them know that, you know, life wasn't always easy for Tracilyn, VCAT. You know, it wasn't always easy for me. And most of my years, all the way into my teen years, I'm searching within myself to try to figure things out. Why was life always better behind me? Why is life always hard for me where I am? Why won't people just accept me? Why can't I just have my hair long? And why do I have to be with girls when I don't want to be with girls? What can I do about this? I'm going to share a lot more with you, catch up on some good times with you. I took a lot of notes. I know you might be saying right now, you know what, Tracilyn, this is very boring. I find this uninteresting. What are you getting at? Remember I told you that I could remember the details of life. I was running around telling you about hopscotch and playing games and catching lightning bugs and fireworks and shooting off the shotgun with my mom's boyfriend. And we were the life of the party wherever we went. And I told you about my new friends, a superhero. Everything was so wonderful. And then all of a sudden I hit depression, and all kinds of things started happening to my mother and to us as a household. I'm getting into trouble. I'm getting bullied at school. And now, still into my teen years, I'm feeling like a total reject. For some reason, I felt like nobody liked me. Nobody liked me for who I was. And I started figuring out I got to change everything about myself if I'm going to be liked. Do you feel like that? Did you ever feel like that? Do you feel like that now? I'm sorry if you do. And I can say it's very painful. But I want to let you know that I'm also here to share with you and warn you about the dangers of changing everything about yourself. If I would have just held in there maybe a little bit longer sometimes, I think, I would have started meeting the right people. I would have started connecting. Because remember, I told you I had my first musician friend. He had long hair too. He loved to play guitar. Very talented. I know he knows who he is because I only had a handful of friends ever in my life. At least up to this point, you know? So here we go. I'm going to close this up. I don't want to be getting people's cars and stuff like that, walking around this neighborhood. Let's go somewhere else where it's kind of quiet. And I'm just going to have a Super Bowl moment where I'm bouncing around all these different ideas of things that I'm struggling to. Know that this is the last neighborhood I lived in as a teenager. After leaving here, there was times of homelessness. And let me tell you something, a lot of struggles. A lot of struggles trying to survive in a world that I felt that I couldn't be myself. I had to change everything so I could have a job. What do you think of that? I had to change everything about myself to have a job. I also had my first girlfriend. She was my best friend. I didn't want to be with her for any other reason than we connected on an energy level where she was a very good friend, but also you're going to find out that I was attracted to her because I wanted to look like her. I wanted to be her. Pretty weird, huh? I wanted to be my girlfriend. Think about that for a little bit. By the time I get this next video uploaded, I'm sure it'll give you time for your wheels to turn. What is she talking about with that? And what does she mean she? She's been saying he, little brother, and stuff like that. Know that you're not alone. And there's a reason why you are who you are. And I'm here to tell you, please, please don't change everything about yourself so you can have friends or be cool and fit in with everybody. Okay? It may seem and give the illusion that it's making things easier, but in the end, in the big scheme of things, it's really starting to start a monopoly or a domino effect, downward spiral of taking you in the opposite direction of where you should be heading. Stay true to your heart, nobody else's heart. I understand you got to do what you got to do, trust me, more than anyone else, in order to survive in a society, in a world that's telling you that you can't be yourself. You have to be this idea of who all mankind should be. If you want a job, do you want a job? Okay then, submit yourself to me. Love you. Don't forget, subscribe to my channel up here somewhere right there. And here's my website, Tracilyn.com. I have free music there, free downloads. Facebook, got something you want to say to me, talk to me about, feel free to check me out there. Type in my name, type VCAT in on Google. You'd be surprised what comes up. I do sing songs in diapers. I like to wear diapers to this day. Eventually, I'll get to that point and tell you how I tapped back into that. And it's more of a comic thing and for comfortability. Many people ask me, do you go to the bathroom in your diapers? The answer is no. Sometimes I think I should, so I don't have to take restroom breaks, but let me just tell you, no, that's not it at all. And you'll find out all the details of why Tracilyn wears diapers. Okay, take care.